Mangroves. Mangroves are a coastal fringe forest. They are unique because they are found between land and the ocean. The term to describe this is intertidal. They can be found in tropical and subtropical areas of the world. And they're halophytes. This means that they're salt tolerant. There are 12 genera globally, and in the Caribbean/Atlantic area, there are 3 main types. There's the white, the red, and the black. They're characterized by their viviparity and their pneumatophores. Viviparity is the continuous growth of an offspring within the parent plant, whereas pneumatophores are aerial roots specialized for gaseous exchange. In this video, we will be discussing an array of topics directly related to mangroves. To begin, we'll be discussing the 3 main types of mangroves found within the Caribbean. First off, we have the Rhizophora mango, otherwise known as the red mangrove. It's called the red mangrove because of the color found within its bark. This is the reason why most people identify it by its arching prop roots. Roots extend from the trunk and lateral branches towards a substrate. Before they reach the substrate, they are known as aerial roots, and when they reach the substrate, they're known as prop roots. The leaves of the red mangrove are glossy and elliptical, and the upper side is dark green, and the underside is a pale, dullish kind of green, which sometimes has black spots. In reference to its viviparity, the propagules of the red mangrove, propagules being pencil-like seedlings that form from the fruit of the parent tree, are more like green and brown cigars. Well, they look more like brown and green cigars at least. And once they reach 8 inches, then they fall off of the parent tree and are dispersed by the water. Now to continue, we'll be talking about Avicennia germinans, otherwise known as the black mangrove. It is called the black mangrove because of its dark-colored bark. The roots in this case are more snorkel-like, and they aid in air, nutrient, and salt exchange, quite similar to the red mangrove's prop roots. The leaves, however, are more elongated and pointed. The top side is a dull dark green, and the underside is a whitish green or gray. The propagules of the black mangrove are smaller than the reds, and they're gray in color. The black mangrove develops a tall main trunk and is more salt tolerant than other species. Now on to our final mangrove type. We have the Laguncularia racemosa, otherwise known as the white mangrove. In case you haven't caught on, it's called the white mangrove because of its whitish bark. The roots of the white mangrove are not aerial and therefore can hardly be seen. They rarely produce pneumatophores, unlike the black mangrove, which constantly has pneumatophores, and the red mangrove, which has prop roots. This is why they are identified by their leaves. The leaves are uniform and light green in color and have small notches at their tips, as well as 2 small bumps on opposite sides of the leaf stem base. These 2 bumps are used for salt exclusion. Salt exclusion is the removal of salt from the water so that the plant may utilize it for its various purposes. The white mangrove has no propagules. The seeds fall and directly root in the area. This is one of the other reasons why they're mainly found inland. Now we'll be discussing the Conocarpus erectus, which is known as the buttonwood. The buttonwood is not a mangrove, but it is a mangrove associate. It's not a mangrove because it lacks mangrove qualities such as viviparity and pneumatophores. This is why they're distinguished also by their leaves, which are alternately arranged, versus the mangrove leaves, which are opposite. They also have glands near the base of the leaf stalk and on the lower surface of the leaves. They grow inland and are the first species of the mangrove community. They grow in a shrub-like pattern and their bark is rough and fissured. The leaves of the buttonwood are narrow, elongated, with sharp pointy tips. The color is silvery and the leaves are a little hairy.
Yes. Okay, so what are the adaptations of mangrove that allow it to survive in the conditions that it does? First and foremost, the mangroves have shallow roots that are widespreading, and these are aerial roots which allow for oxygen in low oxygen conditions. The mangrove also possesses tough and succulent leaves, which is essential for water storage. It also possesses salt glands for high salt concentrations. Um, Additionally, the mangroves also have viviparous seeds. That means that there is no germination phase for the mangroves, and the seeds are dispersed by water in some instances. This dispersal method allows it to colonize different areas of the beach. Mangroves are distributed through the tropics and the subtropics. They grow in sheltered bays such as estuaries, lagoons, or bays. The mangroves are found along as far upstream as 3,300 kilometers. They are notably absent from atolls in most instances. However, in Belize, we possess 3 atolls which do have mangrove present in their region. The species level is also greatly diverse, geographically speaking, and Belize has 3 species, as was mentioned before, which are the red, the white, and the black. Good.
Next, we'll be discussing the zonation of mangroves. So, the zonation is the distribution of plants and animals across a specific zone depending on particular parameters such as altitude or depth. In the case of mangroves, the zonation is in the Atlantic and the Americas and it's based on 3 species. These are the species that we have discussed. The first being the Rhizophora mangrove zone is at the seaward edge. That is the red mangrove. Next, we have a broad band of Avicennia, black mangrove, inland. Following that, we have a belt of Laguncularia, the white, or Conocarpus, which is the buttonwood. Conocarpus is often furthest inland and it's most territorial. Of course, these things can change depending on the geography of the area. To continue, we'll be discussing succession. Succession is when a number of things which have specified characteristics follow one after the other. So, any changes in balance of physical factors will result in gradual changes or succession. The classical view of succession is that it begins with the pioneer red mangrove and then continues with later stages of black and white. Zonation is not controlled directly by physical factors, but a combination of these things. Things such as interspecific competition, propagule dispersal, and sorting. Once the mangroves have reached equilibrium, change will only occur if disturbance happens. So disturbances can be natural, such as hurricanes or tsunamis, and they can also be human-induced, such as deforestation and the clearing of areas for the creation of land.
The growth patterns of mangroves are affected by multiple factors, which include topography, the sediment levels, the salinity levels, the tidal action, and the nutrient availability in the area. The growth patterns occur in 4 major patterns. The growth occur in 4 major patterns, which include the fringe, the basin, the riverine, and the dwarf pattern. The fringe exists because of less favorable conditions in the area, which affects the height of the trees as a result. The height typically grows to about half the average height of the tree. And this typically forms a thin border along the coastline. The basin growth pattern occurs inland. It acts as a buffer between the fringe and the riverine mangroves. It is flushed by extreme tidal waves, resulting in salty conditions which stunt the growth of the white and the black mangroves, and also makes the growth of the red mangrove in the area. The riverine growth pattern occurs, as the name suggests, within rivers and creeks. This may grow all the way up to several miles inland. It receives a lot of nutrients from both inland and estuaries. As a result of the high nutrient availability, the growth of the trees may sometimes reach heights of 80 feet. The dwarf condition is the smallest growth pattern of them all. It typically grows about 5 feet per 50 years. This is a result of the poor nutrient conditions in the area and the extreme salinity.
Let's talk productivity. So mangroves are a major source of productivity in coastal areas. They produce biomass and detritus that feed a range of marine organisms. Their leaf litter provides the basis for aquatic and terrestrial food webs. The species diversity is directly dependent on the primary productivity of mangroves. So mangroves rival or exceed the production of plankton in the oceans. It's that serious. The energy and nutrients that they create are assimilated and stored in their leaves, and it continues on through the processes. As a result of their functions, energy and nutrients are exported to surrounding seagrass and coral reefs. As we stated before, the high primary productivity of mangroves drives the marine system. So we have a variety of feeders. We have the detritus feeders, which we mentioned earlier, which are the mud and root inhabitants. We have the filter feeders, which they filter in the prop root areas. We have the herbivores, the crabs and the beetles. We have carnivores, which are fish, birds, and crocodiles. Next, we'll be discussing the functions of mangroves. So to start, they aid in shoreline stabilization. They keep the soils and sediments intact to keep the land stable. This also leads to how they assist in land restoration, which is the creation of new land by the stabilization of the shoreline. Next, they are also a nursery habitat. They are regular habitats for an array of fauna, and they filter nutrients and sediments and keep the water healthy and clean. Finally, they buffer land and they protect against storms. As well, they are a great contributor to carbon dioxide sequestration. Mangroves provide a range of habitats for different organisms. The terrestrial organisms occupy the leaves and the area above the water, and the marine organisms occupy areas below. So on the terrestrial level, we have insects, birds, reptiles, crabs, snails. Living in the mud and occupying the areas below, we have mollusks, snails, oysters, crustaceans, shrimps, isopods, barnacles, juvenile fish. We also have reptiles such as crocodiles and sea turtles.
Mortality. The mortality of mangroves are on two scales, the large and the small scales. Small scale mortality is due to lightning strikes, sedimentation levels rising beyond the tolerable level, small fires, high levels of sedimentation in the area, and occasionally floodings. Large scale mortalities occur due to sea level changes affecting the water in the area, and also hurricanes, destructive hurricanes battering along the coastline. Mangroves typically take 20 to 25 years to recover. Thank you for watching our video on the mangrove ecosystem, and we hope that you take away some knowledge from this and become genuinely interested in marine ecology. Thank you very much.